Right. Welcome. So today I want to tell you about a gentleman who this was one of the first guys years ago that I treated for erectile issues. And his big thing is he's a truck driver. And unlike a lot of my truck driver patients, he actually really spent time working out. He's one of those guys who went really famous by doing these trucker workouts. So he was exercising a lot, but he was on the road a lot. And so he comes to me and basically says, Dr. Rachel, I don't know what's wrong. I'm doing all of the right things. I think I'm exercising. I'm eating okay. Why am I suffering down there? Right? So we go through, and whenever I have a new patient or client, it's a very extensive interview because I need to know lifestyle, I need to know food, I need to know what's happening, I need to know relationships, I need to know all of these things. Well, so as we go through and chat, come to find out he drinks a lot of coffee, which is not uncommon for someone who's on the road and working tough hours. And on top of it, he drinks cigarettes and smokes cigarettes. So cigarettes are damaging for a couple of reasons. One, they're damaging the blood vessels and the blood flow. And they're one of the most toxic things that you can possibly do for your erection. But he was okay with decreasing the cigarette smoking. So he kind of reduced his cigarette smoking, but he still had erectile issues. So he's this healthy 52-year-old guy. He's exercising, he's doing everything, he's eating right, he cuts down on smoking, and he still can't figure out what's going on with his erection. So as I start to notice, one of his other doctors that he was seeing had put him on Prilosec, right? And so Prilosec, Protonix, Nexium are these great, they make you feel good. If you've ever taken one, as soon as you take it, it seems like your heartburn just magically disappears. But what was happening is he had been on them for almost a year when we met. And what people don't realize about those amazing proton pump inhibitors, which happens to be the number one medication prescribed or used in our country, the Nexiums, the Prilosecs, the Protonix, is that they can do things to your body that actually negates or will make it very difficult to get an erection. So what I want to do to you today is take you through the process of what you can do and what he did in order to kind of wean off of the proton pump inhibitors, the Prilosec, the Nexium, the Protonix, and be able to, survive without using it, and then to get his erectile function back on track. So one of the things to keep in mind when we're talking about proton pump inhibitors is that magic word. When we're talking about erectile health, we always talk about what? Nitric oxide. Because we need nitric oxide in order to relax the blood vessels for blood to flow. But what happens when you're taking too many reflux medications for your reflux or your GERD is that medication ultimately makes it so that it's blocking the acid in your stomach. But you need the acid in your stomach to convert the nitrates in your diet into nitric oxide. And if there's no acid down there, it's very difficult to do that. But another thing that can go wrong is the magnesium. I talk about magnesium a lot, right? Because 2/3 of our population is deficient in magnesium. And when we look at the people who are taking these proton pump inhibitors, these Nexiums, the Prilosecs, the omeprazole, the generics, whatever it is, they are always, every time I've checked, depleted of magnesium. So let's talk about what you can do, what he did, and what you can do to kind of get, not have to use this medication, but also to improve erectile strength if this medication happens to be the culprit. So what happens with these medications are that they block the stomach acid, but you need stomach acid to get an erection, right? And some of the examples of them, and you may be on the generics, they work just the same: Prilosec, Protonix, Nexium. They work wonderfully, but they're not designed for you to stay on them for years and years and years. And the reason is over time it depletes the hydrochloric acid, the acid in your stomach. We think of acid as being this bad thing, but we really do need the acid in our stomach in order to make the nitric oxide, to get the erection and to keep the erection. But also it depletes magnesium, and it can interfere with your parasympathetic nervous system. 1, 2, 3, bam. Right? So when we're talking about that, when you use it too long, actually it kind of worsens your reflux. You don't realize it, but you start relying on it more and more because it actually increases the space between the cells, and it makes heartburn even worse. Okay, so that's why you kind of have to keep taking it. So once you develop reflux, I want you to know that you got to talk to your doctor about, okay, if the reflux is worsening, if you're having trouble swallowing, if you're having changes in your voice, some non-resolved symptoms, it's been getting worse, it's the same, your doctor needs to order some additional tests, right? They need to order either an upper GI x-ray or a GI endoscopy, which they would send you to the GI specialist to do. And at that point, they're going to monitor the pH down there to see what's happening. So when they're doing a EGD, this is actually what you're looking at. This is a healthy esophagus. Now, I don't know about you, but in the news lately, we've seen more people passing away from esophageal cancer. So that's why it's important, if you have reflux and you've been dealing with it for a while, or you have any symptoms that just don't seem right, blood, voice changes, trouble swallowing, all those things, pain, you need to ask your doctor about additional testing. Because a lot of times we'll just throw Protonix or Nexium, try this one, without actually doing any testing. And that is where the problem lies. So you want to do some testings, because there's 3 different types of reflux. There's non-erosive, which is good, which basically means the acid is there, but it's not eating away anything, potentially causing any cancers. There's reflux esophagitis, which means it's causing inflammation in your esophagus. So that needs to be evaluated through testing. And then, of course, Barrett's esophagus, which is precancerous. So you got to know where you lie on this. And oftentimes they'll do a little biopsy when they do your EGD. They kind of put you in this kind of sedated type of state to do it. And it's really no big deal at the end of the day, because it needs to be done if you've been dealing with this for a while. So the big thing that we do is we want to help correct the underlying cause and make sure that it is just basic GERD, right? And so in order to improve and decrease the underlying cause, right? Because we always want to get to the bottom, the root cause of the problem. Here's what we would do. Is it about the valve not closing properly? Is it a tone thing? Is it because the stomach isn't emptying right? Is it because there's not enough protective mucus there? Is it because you have some ulcers there, or an infection there? Is it because the esophagus is inflamed? Does that need to be healed? Is it because your body isn't making enough pancreatic enzymes, right? So because the pancreas creates enzymes that we need to kind of help digest food. And so you want to correct all of that, because keep in mind that your reflux can get worse. It's worse than when you get some coffee with caffeine in it, cigarettes, chocolate, the refined carbs, so processed foods. Some of your medications are making it worse. Acidic foods. Right? Alcohol. Alcohol always makes reflux worse. Maybe it's some foods that you're allergic to. Maybe you're drinking soda. Oftentimes we'll drink a soda thinking it'll settle it, but it actually is kind of making it worse. Peppermint makes it worse. That, you get that funny taste in your mouth, so you go suck on a peppermint, but peppermint is actually making the reflux worse. And eating too much, right? You eat a whole meal, then you go lay flat. Well, laying flat is causing the reflux, and sometimes the reflux is even just coughing. We see it as coughing in kids, as chronic cough, particularly at night, after meals, and then there's no cold there. They've treated the kid for pneumonia, thrown all these antibiotics, and actually it tends to be reflux, but it happens in adults too. So what can help? Here's some things that you can actually try over the counter to help. You want to talk to your doctor about these things first, but slippery elm, DGL, which is a type of licorice, which is actually, they take it and they remove the part of the licorice that could impact your blood pressure, and you take it before food. Same with the slippery elms. Aloe vera juice, adding aloe vera juice into the smoothie recipes can help with the reflux too. And for the bloating, I like to use something called Antratil, which is a plant-based herbal supplement that kind of helps decrease the bacteria that's causing gas and leading to bloating, right? So here's some examples. DGL, I don't have any affiliate relationships with any of these products. The aloe vera juice is coming from the fillet. So if you have aloe vera plant that you're growing in your house, you just take the inside of it and put it into your smoothie or put it into your juice. And that really helps. And then, of course, there's some great combination products. Vital Nutrients makes this great heartburn treatment powder that mixes a lot of the stuff that we use to help heal and to help improve some of the symptoms. And what you do is you take like a scoop of it in water before your meals. And this is the same with Da Vinci. So they both make really great products because the whole idea is that we want to heal. Now, then what you're going to do is gradually wean down off of your proton pump inhibitors, right? So you're going to decrease it. Maybe you're doing it twice a day. Now you're going to start doing it once a day by using some of these other things to try to help. Then after a couple weeks of doing it once a day, then you're decreasing it to every other day and maybe using something like Pepcid or, some of that stuff that you think doesn't work, but actually blocks H2 receptors and not the acid. So they're not as damaging to this process. And then after 2 more weeks, you decrease it to every 3rd day. And, basically the whole idea is to decrease the amount that you're on so that you can actually get the acidity in your stomach back up so that now when you're eating the nitrate-rich foods, when you're drinking the smoothies, when you're doing all of these things right, now your body can actually use this to then start producing more nitric oxide levels. Now, the other part to this that I mentioned is the parasympathetic nervous system and also magnesium. If you're not taking magnesium right now, usually one of the first things I ask is, well, why aren't you taking magnesium and what forms of magnesium are you taking? I want you to stay away from magnesium citrate as much as possible, unless that's your only option, the only one available, and go for more of the magnesium glycinates or the magnesium stearates. Those are better and easier for your body to absorb. But so for someone who's been chronically on Prilosec and Protonix and Nexium, we've got to get their magnesium up. So immediately one of the things that we do is just really give higher doses of magnesium to try to supplement from all of this time of being hypomagnesium. Now, when your magnesium is low, also what ends up happening is your calcium levels become low. So then your body can't absorb calcium, so the bones can actually become weak and fragile. So if you've been on these medications for years and years and years, there's a high chance that your bones might be actually becoming a little bit more fragile. So you want to start by supplementing magnesium, but you also want to make sure that you're getting the stomach acid up so that we can actually start making more nitric oxide. Because here's the thing, if we don't make nitric oxide, I don't care if it's Viagra, Cialis, or whatever else we give you, it's not gonna work. So we've got to try to boost the nitric oxide levels in whatever way we can. We talk about L-citrulline and L-arginine, that's one pathway, but then the other pathway are the nitrate-rich foods that are packed in the smoothie recipes, that are packed in green leafy vegetables, right? And so we want to use both of those pathways to make as much nitric oxide as possible so that the blood vessels can dilate and blood can come rushing through to all of the areas that we want it to. So this is a great question because I got this question last week and I said I was going to start with it, and I reached back into my memory banks about this very particular person, this very particular truck driver who, when we were able to get him off of his Prilosec and start using some of the more natural remedies and start healing his heartburn, and once we were able to do that, now his nitric oxide levels can start to do what they needed to do. And honestly, it was that little switch and supplementing his magnesium that really helped him to be able to have the erectile potential that he needed to, maintain erections and to get as stiff as he'd like to. So if you are reliant on these medications, start talking to your doctor about how can you wean them off. Share this video with them so that maybe it'll inspire that particular doctor to try to do this with all their patients, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to inspire and grow and things like that. So I hope this helps. Now, someone asked me what about gastroparesis? And gastroparesis, we see gastroparesis a lot with people who technically have had the nerves to the gut kind of damaged in some type of way. And so what's happening is the motility or the movement in the gut is actually impaired. So when it comes to gastroparesis in Western medicine, there's prescriptions that we may give you for antibiotics that are going to help with gastroparesis. But there are also, when we're dealing with gut issues, we've got to, one, know what type of bacteria we're dealing with there. We want to make sure that this is really gastroparesis and not an H. pylori infestation. And we want to deal with the bacteria. We want to get rid of the bad bacteria, balance the good bacteria, and make sure that the good bacteria have all the nutrients that it needs necessary in order to continue to do its job. And if you know, the gut bacteria kind of is the powerhouse and the director of your body. So if we don't keep the gut healthy, then the rest of us starts to fall apart too, particularly our erections, right? So great questions. I love you too. Okay, so you're on pantoprazole and famotidine. So Troiler, you have gut issues, right? So what you really want to do is you want to make sure that your doctor has done the proper testing to make sure that this is just reflux, but that you also want them to do the proper testing to figure out why you're having reflux. Is it a hiatal hernia? Is it a motility issue? Is it an acid issue? What is causing it? And then you really want to work to heal the gut. You don't want to be on these medications for the rest of your life, because they will interfere with a variety of things. And they're not designed, if you look at the back of the package, they tell you not to take it for more than like 4 weeks in some occasions and 18 weeks in other occasions. So these are not designed for long-term use. That's why when you go to the doctor and you tell them you're still taking them, they're like, well, we really want you off of these, but go ahead and keep taking them anyway, because it's really hard to help your patient get off of these, but you really want to work with your doctor to do that. And if your doctor can't help you do that, guess what? There's other doctors out there. You can fire your doctor and get a better one. Yes. Oh, hello, Dr. Rachel. Your smoothies improve stiffness, pumping, and Dickup's additional green leafy nitrates, magnesium G, everything worked. Yes! Yes. I love that. Listen, we don't have to take the diagnosis laying down, right? When the doctor hands you a prescription of Viagra or Cialis, I want you to say, you know what, doc, I'm going to work on this. Sure, I might use that here and there, but I'm going to work on this because I want to heal from within. L. Armour, I am loving this. I'm going to send you, as soon as I get the printed copies of our smoothie recipes, I'm gonna write you a note and send you one. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me. That makes me feel so good to know that this work that we're doing here is helping and is paying off. I love that. Ah, nice. Now, Marvel asks, what testosterone levels would be considered abundant? Now, if I have a gentleman who comes in and his testosterone is 350 and his doctor has told him, well, it's okay, it's borderline, that's terrible. I really want to work with that guy to try to boost them. I honestly, as a functional medicine doctor, I like for testosterone levels to be close to 1,000, if not in some gentlemen a little more. And we want to optimize the free testosterone specifically. But we also have to look at the estrogen levels. We want to make sure the estradiol levels aren't too high, because that can cause a bit of problems too. And if you notice, Quest Labs and some of the conventional labs will tell you your testosterone levels are okay. But honestly, guys function better when their testosterone is optimized. Every part of their body functions better when it's optimized. The brain, there's less depression. The heart, there's less heart disease. The diabetes, the blood sugars normalize. So testosterone boosting in men is so important. And if you are dealing with your doctor who's telling you, well, it looks okay, I don't really want to give you anything for it, and doesn't want to get on board with helping you maximize your testosterone, hey, it might be time to switch. All right? Awesome. Hey, in South Africa, Tom has been using DGL for years instead of Protonix and Prilosec, and it works. Absolutely. Some people, that's really all they need. there are other people who are going to have tougher cases, and they might need some digestive enzymes. They might need some betaine. It just kind of depends on the person. That's why sometimes it's best to find a functional medicine doctor or holistic practitioner who uses some of these plant-based methods to help you with your reflux. But I always say, we still have to do the investigative things, right? We still need to do an upper GI to make sure that there's no cancer present and that there's nothing else going on here, particularly if you have any of the risk factors. You've been drinking alcohol regularly. Maybe you've been a cigarette smoker. Maybe you're a little overweight. Those are risk factors for that GERD turning into esophageal cancer or Barrett's esophagus. And so that's even more reason to say, look, doc, I've got some of these risk factors. I might need an extra test, right? After a lot of acid reflux, my pharmacy suggested omeprazole over the counter. Hey, listen, pharmacists are trying to replace physicians all over the place. There's some that aren't, but I don't think that you should get your medical advice from the pharmacist. I think that you need to go talk to your doctor about it, or your healthcare practitioner, a nurse practitioner, somebody other than somebody who just pushes pills every day. Okay, because the pharmacist's job is to sell you pills, sell you medicine, sell you products, right? So if our goal is to be as natural as possible and to optimize your own body and what your body is capable of, sometimes asking a salesperson for the drugs may not be the person to ask. And unfortunately, some doctors are salespeople for the drugs too. So, but anytime you're having reflux, we've put up the natural ways that you can deal with it, because honestly, omeprazole, Prilosec, all of that, it may not be interfering with erectile health just now, but if you stay on it long enough, it will. It very much will. You need my smoothies ebook. Yes. Okay. Here's how you get the smoothies. Head over to drrachelinstitute.com/smoothie recipes. I got this amazing testimonial from a gentleman, and see if I could find it. Well, one of the things I want to reiterate is that with the smoothie recipes, feel free to add the aloe vera juice in there. Aloe vera juice will help with the reflux, right? Feel free to add, we've had, some guys have told me that they're adding L-citrulline and L-arginine powder into their smoothies. They're adding cocoa powder into the smoothies, all things that are going to help with this process as well. And then, one gentleman said he started the smoothies having great results, but he said squeezing half a lemon is a bit too much for him. So this is another great thing about smoothie recipes. If you want to go with a quarter of a lemon, that's great. And then honey, you'll notice some of them have honey in it, but I want you to understand that honey has so many useful things that go with it, right? Not only is it antibacterial, it's anti-inflammatory. There's so many healing properties in honey that when I'm adding them into the smoothie recipes, it's not just for taste. And for my diabetics out there, if you could get a progressive nutritionist or progressive physician that has looked at the data that shows that there's a lot of therapeutic value that honey is bringing to diabetes, as opposed to it being considered just a sugar and it's better to have sugar substitute, I totally disagree. And I want you to challenge your doctor on that and ask them if they've read about any benefits that honey can bring to diabetes. So keep in mind that all of these recipes, particularly if you have any health conditions, you want to talk to your nutritionist or your physician that works with you directly to see if this is something that is useful for you. But for the most part, the smoothie recipes are really, really helping guys worldwide, because remember what we need when we're talking about anti-inflammatories and anti-aging. One thing that we're talking about is we're also talking about, hey, what can we do to minimize the damage that everyday life brings, that our cell phones bring, that our stress brings, that not sleeping brings, that smoking cigarettes, that maybe drinking brings? How do we help minimize that damage from the free radicals? Well, we want to have as many antioxidant units as we possibly can. And what happens with our smoothie recipes is they pack in the antioxidants, they help you boost nitric oxide levels, and they help you do something that in essence, is really hard to do solo. Like, unless you're the type of person who just piles on all of these different veggies and makes sure that you're balancing everything, sometimes it's best to just put them in a drink and drink them, right? And so I think that that's ultimately why the smoothie recipes become so successful, is because they actually are able to do that. Awesome. Let me see here. Great. So I know I also have a question about our bundles. Well, I'm so excited. I finally restocked on the bundles. So the bundles officially are going on sale tomorrow. And the bundles, just talk about the bundles. The bundles, when you give me those questions about, Doc, where do I start? How do I heal? What I want you to know is I am definitely not anti-Viagra, anti-Cialis. I think that those things have a place. But what I do with my patients is we can be on that as we're starting the healing process, right? As we're starting the pumping, as we're starting the dick ups, as we might be doing some home shockwave therapy or in-office shockwave therapy, as we're doing the supplements, as we're doing the nutrients, all of this kind of has to work together, right? Because ultimately, what Viagra and Cialis bring to the table is they kind of put a Band-Aid on an unraveling situation. And so what happens to everybody is eventually they just stop working, or they stop working as well. And so what that cues us into is it one, that the tissue has become kind of necrotic and stiffened, so it's not responding anymore? Or is it two, that blood flow issues have kicked in? Or is it three, that you're just not making the right amount of nitric oxide gas that allows the blood vessels to expand? Or is it all of the above, right? So on top of just the mental stuff that can happen, with it, now you got performance anxiety, now maybe some relationship stuff has kicked in. The bundle even helps you work through some of the relationship stuff, right? Because over time, sex changes. What turned you on before may not turn you on anymore. What used to turn your partner on before may not turn your partner on anymore. And what happens is over time, we stop having those conversations. We stop talking to each other about what works and what doesn't. And we just assume that, you like the same stuff that you liked 5 years ago. Well, if you happen to date women and have sex with women, what you find is that over time, especially if you had kids, maybe the breasts were an amazing source of foreplay before. Well, now we don't really like that as much. Or we like it, but in a different way. So sometimes you need to pull back from this situation and reassess, what is it that turns me on and what is it that turns my partner on? And the sexual swag assessment tool that comes in the bundle helps you start to have those dialogues, right? Because we've all been there, right? You're laying there and you're like, oh my God, I don't like that. I wish they would stop. But sometimes you just don't say it because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or you don't want this to go badly, or you're just happy to be there. And like, gosh, if I say something, I might not get some again for a month or so. So we need tools sometimes to kind of help us have these difficult conversations, because these conversations are difficult, right? So this is great. This is great. Awesome. And then someone says, well, who cares? Well, obviously not you. So that means if you don't care about your partner enjoying themselves, then you're probably not enjoying yourself either. Awesome. What do you think about pine pollen to increase testosterone? Oh, this is a great question. Now, I don't particularly use a lot of pine pollen in my practice or with my gentlemen, but I'll say this. If pine pollen is working for you and has helped you boost your testosterone, then you may have found the golden ticket, because remember, everybody is different. Everybody's process is different. You might have a buddy who's like, oh my God, try this. This works so well for me. And you try it and you're like, not so much for me. That's because all of us are different. So getting to the root cause is always going to be best, right? And weight training to increase testosterone is great to a certain extent. So if you're over the age of 55, you want to be a little bit more mindful about spacing out your high intensity interval training and your weight training. If you're under the age of 55, then you don't have to think about that as much. But weight training and actually high intensity interval training will boost your testosterone technically a little more than weight training, but that's definitely a huge part of boosting testosterone in both men and women. That's why sometimes after a workout, you get horny. You're like, whoa, why am I feeling like this? Well, it's because of the testosterone surge and the adrenaline surge that happens when you're doing those types of exercises. So tomorrow, the bundles are available. The smoothie recipe printed copy of the book that actually has a little bit more description as to why those smoothie recipes are doing what they're doing. So what I was hearing from you guys is that you wanted more to read about why those smoothies are working and how they work. So we've got that. So that's coming to you in a printed form shortly. So stay tuned. And the bundles officially, before we sell out, go on sale tomorrow. So if you're on my email list, they go on sale today. And then for the rest of everyone, they actually go on sale tomorrow. I'm so excited. Keep the great feedback coming. I love these success stories. You can't share this with me enough. I also have my intensive coming up. We are going on an intensive, eFunction intensive, where I work one-on-one with you specifically to help you maximize your erectile function, to come up with a plan. I spoke with Curtis the other day. I'm excited because we've got to shift some things that Curtis is doing. I'm so excited. He's super motivated, he and his wife. So I love when I get a chance to work with couples, because the wives kind of help think things move in the right direction, but also I can talk to the wives too about, maybe when we're starting, if we're not so focused on whether or not that's going to happen, or if when it doesn't happen within the first 2 minutes, you don't go, oh man, again, that shuts down the whole situation, right? So working with couples and the two of them together is such an amazing thing, because if you have a partner that's on board and really wants for things to improve, it's much easier, right? Versus coming to me being like, Doc, I've got a problem, but my partner doesn't really want to have sex anymore anyway. Then how do we test, right? How do we know it's improved? So I've got an intensive coming up. If you're interested in enrolling in the intensive that's coming up at the end of the month, please let me know. Reach out, send us an email, info@drrachelinstitute.com. And of course, for those of you who haven't gotten your smoothie recipes yet, go ahead, head over to drrachelinstitute.com/smoothie recipes. So keep the questions coming, because it helps me understand what types of questions and answer sessions that we need to have here. And keep the feedback coming, because it lets me know what's working. Lets me know, what are you using in your smoothies? Keep sending me the pictures of your smoothies, because I'm going to be showing these. And then tell me your special recipes that you're using. How are you changing the recipes? What are you adding to them? What have you taken out of them? Because if you notice, very few of my smoothies have celery in it, but you can add celery. I just don't like celery for some reason, but celery is packed with nitrates, right? So if you want to add celery to the smoothies, have at it. If you want to add more ginger, that's fantastic, because ginger helps improve blood flow. If you decide you want to add some cayenne pepper, that's amazing too, because cayenne pepper helps with blood flow too. So what we're doing with our smoothie recipes is adding and packing in so many nutrients, so many antioxidants, so many nitrate-rich products that it helps the body better do what it was designed to do in the first place. So that's awesome. Awesome. And I'll see you guys next week.